Imagine living surrounded by luxury, where everything seems perfect, but feeling like something essential is missing. And on any given day, you see a homeless man with nothing but courage save a stranger's life at a busy intersection. How can someone who lost everything show so much humanity? This is the story of Isadora, a millionaire searching for purpose, and Lucas, a man who turned adversity into strength. Between exciting twists, lively dialogue, and moments of pure connection, they prove that love and redemption can emerge in the most unexpected places. Get ready for a journey that will challenge prejudices, warm your heart, and keep you hooked until the last second. Isadora adjusted her elegant dress as she left the party in Nova Athena's. The night, despite being full of luxury and loud music, seemed as superficial as the conversations he had had. Another event where everyone talks, but no one really says anything, she muttered to herself as she got into the back seat of her car. "Is everything okay, miss?" asked the driver, looking in the rearview mirror. "Yes, Marcos. Just wondering, why is it so hard to find something that really matters?" she replied, looking out the window as the city quickly passed by. Traffic came to a screeching halt at a busy intersection. Isadora sighed, preparing herself for yet another delay. It was then that something caught his attention. On the other side of the street, a distracted elderly man was crossing while a car was advancing dangerously. Before the worst could happen, a man ran, holding the elderly man by the arms and pulling him to the sidewalk. "Did you see that?" asked Isadora, leaning forward in her seat. "He literally saved that gentleman." "Yes, miss, it was impressive. An act of courage like this is not common," replied Marcos. Isadora observed the man. He was wearing worn-out clothes, his hair was messy, but there was something about him, a dignity in his posture, and a calmness in the way he stood back from the crowd. Instinctively, she opened the car door. "Wait here, Marcos, I need to talk to him." She crossed the street, ignoring the noise around her. "Hey, you!" he called, catching up to the man before he disappeared into an alley. He turned around, surprised. "Yes? I saw what you did. He saved that man without thinking twice." "That was incredible," said Isadora, trying to catch her breath. The man shrugged. "It was just what needed to be done. There's nothing incredible about that." "How not? You put your life at risk for someone you don't even know," she insisted. He smiled, a calm but slightly tired smile. "So what? It's the least anyone should do, don't you think?" "Do you need anything?" Isadora asked, ignoring his indifferent tone. "I can help. Money, food, whatever." He laughed, but without disdain. It was a laugh that seemed accustomed to offers of help. "I don't need anything. Just a hot coffee, maybe. But I can do that here." Isadora smiled back. "Then I'll buy you a coffee." He hesitated, but accepted. They walked to a nearby cafe where he ordered the simplest coffee on the menu. While they waited, Isadora tried to start a conversation. "What is your name?" he asked. "Lucas," he replied, looking at the cup in his hands. "Lucas, do you have somewhere to stay?" He shook his head slowly. "No, but don't worry about me. I've been through worse." "That's no reason not to help," Isadora replied, with a firm tone. He looked at her for a moment, as if trying to read her. "And you? Who is it?" he asked, changing focus. "I? Just someone trying to find a purpose in life," she said, laughing lightly. Lucas raised an eyebrow, intrigued, but said nothing more. When the coffee was finished, Lucas thanked him and began to say goodbye. "Thanks for the coffee, and for the conversation. It was nice to talk to someone different." "Wait," said Isadora. "Can I meet you here tomorrow? Maybe help in some way?" He sighed but smiled. "If you want. I can't promise I'll be around, but who knows?" As Lucas walked away, Isadora stared at him, feeling a new curiosity. There was something about this man, something she couldn't define, but that made her want to know more. The next day, Isadora returned to the same diner, determined to find Lucas. He was sitting in a corner, with the same calm look in his eyes, drinking another simple coffee. When she entered, he saw her and waved slightly, as if he had already expected her presence. "You're really here," she said, approaching and pulling out a chair without asking permission. "You said you'd be back," Lucas replied, raising his shoulders. "And I am a man of my word." She smiled, intrigued by the direct way he spoke. "I have so many questions, but I think the first one should be, why don't you accept help?" Lucas looked at the cup in his hands before responding. "Help sometimes comes with a price, and the price is not always right." Isadora frowned. "I'm not charging anything. I just want to understand how you got here." He sighed, as if he already knew the conversation would go this way. "I lost everything 3 years ago. Family, work, home. A sequence of mistakes and bad luck. I tried to get up, but society has no patience for those who fall." She listened silently, noticing the sincerity in his words. "And now?" he asked. "Don't you want to try again?" Lucas laughed quietly, without bitterness. "You talk like it's easy. But starting over without anyone by your side is like building a house in the middle of a storm." "What if someone wants to help you?" she insisted. He watched her for a moment before responding. "And what would you gain from that? Satisfaction? A trophy for being good?" "Maybe it's simpler than that," replied Isadora. "Maybe I just want to do something that finally makes sense." Lucas tilted his head as if evaluating his words. "All good. If that makes sense to you, I'll take it, but no promises of miracles, right?" "Okay," she said, trying to hide the joy in her voice. "We can start with a place for you to stay." "That's generous," Lucas said after a long silence. "But generosity like this often comes with complicated stories. I hope you're ready." She laughed, shaking her head. "I have more complications than you imagine, Lucas. Then we're even." They talked for a few more minutes before Lucas finally agreed to go with her to a small apartment that Isadora had managed to organize. As they walked, he commented, "You are very stubborn." "And you are very resilient," she replied. "Maybe it's a good balance." Lucas laughed, something rare, but sincere. "Maybe it is." Lucas adjusted the clean shirt that Isadora had bought for him, still uncomfortable with his new environment. The apartment was simple, but to someone who had slept on the streets for years, it looked like a castle. "Are you okay?" Isadora asked as she placed a plate of hot soup on the table. "Yeah, just weird," he replied, looking around. "You know, I haven't had a roof like this in a long time." She sat across from him, smiling softly. "You'll get used to it. And who knows, maybe even like it." Lucas picked up the spoon, but before tasting the soup, he commented with an amused tone, "If this is packaged soup, I think I'm going to miss my cold coffee." Isadora laughed, relaxing for the first time in days. "Hey, it's homemade soup, don't be ungrateful. I'm just saying the competition isn't very fierce," he joked, finally tasting the dish. After a pause, he said, "That's good. Good. Because you're going to eat a lot of this." "Cooking is not my strong point," replied Isadora, shaking her head. In the following days, Lucas began to adapt to the new rhythm. Isadora, determined to help him find purpose, encouraged him to explore his abilities. It was during a casual conversation that he discovered something unexpected. "Do you have any skills other than making sarcastic jokes?" she asked, as she typed on her notebook. Lucas thought for a moment before responding. "First of all, I was a carpenter." She stopped typing and looked at him. "Carpenter? Why didn't you tell me before?" He shrugged. "I thought it wasn't relevant. It's just a bunch of wood and tools." "Lucas, this is incredible. You can do that again," said Isadora, excited. "You're getting too carried away," he said, laughing. "It's not that simple." "Of course it is. Let's find a space and start small," she insisted. "You'll see." Despite his doubts, Lucas accepted the challenge. The following week, With basic tools and a small space that Isadora found, he started working again. The sound of the hammer against the wood brought a feeling of familiarity that he hadn't felt in years. "That seems natural to you," Isadora commented, watching as he worked. "Because it is," Lucas replied with a smile she rarely saw. "And it's good to feel that again." The news about Lucas began to circulate among Isadora's acquaintances, and inevitably the trials came. During a lunch with friends from high society, Isadora was bombarded with questions disguised as curiosity. "So, you're helping a homeless person?" asked one of them, forcing a smile. "Not just helping. He has talent and a heart that many people I know lack," replied Isadora, cutting her piece of salmon. "That's inspiring," said another friend, with a tone that clearly suggested otherwise. "But you need to be careful. People like that, well, they're not always trustworthy." Isadora put down the cutlery and looked directly at them. "People like that. I think we're talking about someone who has more courage and dignity than half of this table." The silence was deafening. Later, when sharing the incident with Lucas, he gave a short laugh. "You are brave for challenging your friends, but don't worry about me. I'm used to being frowned upon." "Well, I'm not. So get ready, because we are going to change this story," she said, determined. The big test took place at a charity event organized by Isadora. She insisted that Lucas be present and even encouraged him to show off some of the furniture he had recently built. He was reluctant at first, but gave in. "I'm going, but only because you asked me to," said Lucas, adjusting the jacket that Isadora had bought for him. "And you will impress everyone, trust me," she replied with an encouraging smile. At the event, Lucas was initially greeted with suspicious looks, but his calm and charismatic posture soon began to attract curiosity. When a woman commented on the quality of her furniture, Lucas responded with humor. "Thanks. I do my best to make sure they don't fall apart on the first use. Believe me, I've had practice building things that last." The phrase brought genuine laughter, and little by little, Lucas gained the respect of his guests. Even Isadora's father, known for his skepticism, seemed impressed. "You have an interesting outlook on life," he said, after a longer conversation with Lucas. "I learned to value what really matters, sir," Lucas replied sincerely. At the end of the night, as they were returning home, Lucas looked at Isadora and said, "You believed in me when I didn't even believe. That's worth more than any compliment I heard today." "And I will continue to believe," she replied, with a sparkle in her eyes. The sun shone softly over the field where friends and family gathered for Isadora and Lucas's wedding. It was a simple ceremony, far from the extravagant events Isadora usually attended, but full of meaning. Every detail seemed to reflect the journey they had walked together, from their first meeting to this moment. Lucas, in a well-fitting suit, looked at the altar with a mixture of nervousness and happiness. As he watched her walk down the hallway, his smile grew. Isadora looked radiant in a simple yet elegant dress, with delicate flowers in her hair. The silence of the guests was only broken by the light sound of the breeze passing through the trees. When they finally came face to face, the celebrant began the vows. But Lucas, unable to wait, decided to improvise. He held Isadora's hands and in a firm voice said, "Isadora, you saw me when I was at rock bottom, but you never treated me like someone broken. You believed in me before I even could. I promise to be the man who will always be by your side, even if you burn the rice again." The audience burst into laughter, and Isadora shook her head, laughing too. Then, with a slightly choked voice, he replied, "Lucas, you brought meaning to my life when I thought I already had everything. I promise to always remember that it is in the simple moments that we find true happiness, and I promise to try not to burn the rice so much." The words brought laughter and tears from everyone present. When the celebrant declared them man and wife, the sound of applause echoed across the fields. Under the blue sky and the affectionate looks of the guests, they sealed their union with an emotional kiss. After the ceremony, as the guests gathered for the outdoor party, Isadora climbed onto a small platform and asked for silence. "I want to thank everyone for being here today. This moment is not just about love, but about transformation. Lucas and I decided to start a social project. We want to create spaces to help homeless people rebuild their lives, just like Lucas did," Lucas added, holding the microphone. "If there's one thing I've learned, it's that no one should face life alone. Let's work to give others the same chance I had. And today, with you here, we feel even more motivated to make this happen." The guests applauded warmly, and the idea gained immediate support. Some of Isadora's friends even offered to help with resources and partnerships. The couple turned that day into a milestone not only for their love, but also for the social change they hoped to inspire. Later, as the sky darkened and the stars began to emerge, Lucas and Isadora walked away from the party for a moment. They sat on a bench under a large tree, watching the fields illuminated by the soft lights of the event. "Who knew that an intersection could change our lives so much?" he said thoughtfully, holding her hand. "I would say it was more than a crossover. It was courage, persistence, and a little luck," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. "And maybe destiny too. And you, always you," he said, smiling. "None of this would have happened without your determination, or without your bravery," she replied. "You transformed your life and inspired me to do the same." As the distant sound of party music filled the air, the two remained silent, reflecting on everything they had accomplished. It wasn't just love that united them, but the certainty that together they could transform the world around them. They knew the journey was just beginning, but in that moment they had everything they needed, each other and the purpose to change lives, one at a time.